Hey everybody, I'm Brian. I'm the Roanoke Valley Libertarians Chair. At our March social, we had the pleasure of having Tony DeRazio come and speak to us about his attempts to become the LNC Chair. He goes over what he wants to do to unify the party. He talks about individuals that he looked up to and brought him to the party, and he goes over a few other little things that I think you might find interesting. If you want to find out more about him, please go to tony4chair.com and you can find out his entire platform. So why don't you sit back, grab yourself a coffee or a tea or a juice or a water, and listen to the Roanoke Valley Libertarians talk to Tony DeRazio. All right.
All right.
So here we go. This is, and I know I'll butcher your name. I'll call you Tony. You want to say your last name?
It's DeRazio.
DeRazio is currently the first vice chair of the Libertarian Party of New York and has previously served as chair of the state party and at-large committee member before that. He's been active at the county level. He has served as vice chair of the Monroe County Libertarian Party for 3 years, and now he's running for LNC chair. Welcome. Thank you for coming and speaking to us. Just take a few minutes. You can just tell us about yourself, why you're running, and then we'll leave enough time and we'll do a Q&A with you.
So sounds great. I'm Tony DeRazio. That was maybe one of the best introductions I've ever had. I love it.
I took it from your website.
Hey, my team is doing a great job on that, huh?
Yeah.
I am looking to be a chair of the LNC. I'm looking to put our principles in front. I'm looking to get us focused on supporting candidates and winning elections.
You need the speaker.
And
okay. Good.
I'm looking to bring the party back together. Now, these are all things that I've done in New York. I focused us on principles from a messaging standpoint. I've grown the membership. We've supported candidates and won elections here in New York. And we had a serious rift a couple years ago. These are all things that happened in New York. The microcosm of what's happened in New York is being kind of reflected in the national landscape nowadays. And I'm running to help repair it and get us to a point where we can actually compete against the duopoly with tools and with technology and with motivated a bunch of libertarians. That's a good enough introduction for me, I suppose.
Well, I believe so. You're talking about unity. What exactly, can you go into more detail? Like, how are you going to bring people together? Because I've seen it online. Libertarians will gladly, we'll fight tooth and nail with other libertarians to prove how libertarian we are. But then when it comes to the major two parties, it's almost like we patty cake with them. So how would you bring this unity together?
I think you really said that very well. That message right there. We're so busy. So the analogy that I've been using is that we're the third largest political party in the country. And I think we all know that. But think of the two biggies as being Walmart and Target. And we are this little lemonade stand trying to sell the best lemonade that anybody has to offer to compete with Walmart and Target. And instead of making this great lemonade and selling it to the people, we're throwing the lemons at each other.
Yep.
And we have people peeing in the lemonade. Somebody used that analogy with me the other day, and it cracked me up. I'll tell you what I did in New York. We had two factions that were actually claiming ownership of the Libertarian Party, the name, after we won ballot access in 2018. And those two sides just wouldn't talk to each other. They went through a couple of chairs where there was just a big rift. Either you were with this chair or you were with this chair, and there were lawsuits. When I became chair, one of my priorities was to put an end to that. And what it turns out that the differences between this side and this side were, believe it or not, not that great. They represented very small portions of the party, small but influential. And just by talking to them and giving them a voice with the chair, helped heal that rift. Help make them feel like, well, you know, they may not agree with me, but at least we're all working towards this goal of a world set free in our lifetimes. Which, when you see a lot of infighting, I think people lose sight of that. That really we all have the same goal: fight the state, not each other. That's all I did. I didn't do any black magic in New York. It was just simply listening to people, talking to people, getting them to the negotiating table.
Okay. What are some of the ideas? Because here's another thing that I've been with this group since 2009, but I've been real active since 2010.
Okay.
And in the national level, we've had the same fight with, let's say, presidential. I can tell you the exact same. I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen in 2024, 2028. Let's say they're going to make it hard for us to get on the ballot. They're going to make the media hard. They're just going to ignore us. You know, we'll fight with each other. Obviously, that'll be it. But the first two, so in turn, like if I was fighting, if you're a UFC fighter, the fighter one fights fighter two, number two wins. When they come back for the rematch, they better have a new game plan. Do you have a game plan when it comes to get national? So we can get national attention. Because listen, as much as I love the Libertarian Party, and I think we've got the best message out there, I can't sell to my friends who love what I'm saying. I say, vote for my guy, and he gets 2%. How do we go different? What's a different fight?
We hear a lot of that you can't win mentality from people who have just seen it over and over. And we had a great opportunity in 2016, and I don't think we really took the full advantage of it that we could. With Gary Johnson.
Yes.
Whether you liked him or didn't, he was certainly somebody who could speak liberty to the masses. And inside the party, we got kind of tied up on, oh, we don't like his vice presidential pick. And by the way, I was one of those people. I was not a fan of Bill Weldon. I wasn't quiet about it. And I see the error in my ways. Really what we need to do is put the candidates up front. Now, we've been doing better in messaging than we used to. We're kind of a strange party in that everybody knows the Republicans are the party of the right and the Democrats are the party of the left, which means the Libertarians are the party of the, wait, what are you guys again? So one of the things that we, in addition to being an organization that needs to be focused on getting candidates on the ballot, we also have to be an educational organization. And that starts now. We need to get good messaging out, broader than just the echo chamber mailing list that we're getting them out to show the American public what the Libertarian Party actually is and what we stand for ahead of the 2024 election. Because if we get to the 2024 election, we're too late. We've already let the media dictate that the Democrat and the Republican candidate are the only two candidates. There are only two candidates. We know they're not going to be. We're going to have a candidate, but we need to get them and their messaging out in front of the media early, before 2024. In 2023, boy, I wish we could nominate in 2023. We can't. And neither can the Democrats and Republicans, but at least they have their people, their candidates debating in front of people. Their message doesn't need to get out there. Ours does. So we need to focus on that. We need to focus on educating the American public on what our principles are, what we stand for, and what our candidate is going to stand for. So now in 2024, when we're at that convention in Washington, D.C., there's already an educated American public watching the Libertarian Party on C-SPAN nominate our candidate, and it won't matter who it is. doesn't really matter who the Democrats run. It doesn't really matter who the Republicans run. They know they're going to have people who support their values, who are going to support their candidate. We need to build that.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, right. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't want to take control. Just make sure if anyone has anything to ask me. All right.
So I would say, like, on that topic over here. Hi. So one of the things that I think kind of hurt us a little bit in the 2020 election cycle was that our convention was so late in the year. Because I mean, everybody knew that it was going to be Biden and Trump well before we had announced that Joe was going to run. Would you see like the 2024 convention happening earlier in the year so we could kind of get our candidate out there sooner?
Well, I mean, that's one idea, but I would the two things I will say is, one, our convention was still before the Democrat and Republican conventions, and you're right. The American public already knew that it was going to be a Trump-Biden race, and they were already running towards that. And really, their conventions were nothing more than a pep rally for those two candidates. That's really all their conventions are. And we don't have that, and I don't think we're going to have that in 2024. I think we're too late to schedule our convention earlier in 2024. I believe there are contracts, without looking, I'm pretty sure there are contracts signed. We already have our dates in DC. We've traditionally done this on Memorial Day weekend in the presidential years, precisely to get us out in front of petitioning in a lot of states, in front of the Democrat and Republican campaigns. I think the problem's bigger than that, though. I don't think it really matters who we run as a candidate, although it would be nice to get them some name recognition ahead of time. Gary Johnson 3, anybody? But we're not going to have that. We need to really get our principles and who we are in front of the American people before I worry about moving a convention. Now in 2028, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we do have it a little bit earlier in the year. That's something we can consider in the future. I don't think we can pull it off in 2024 though.
Okay.
So what brought you to the LP, and do you feel yourself 10 or 15 years politically was different, or how do you feel, like if you were to go back 10, 15 years ago, how would you feel this libertarian would be with that individual? And what brought you to the party, and then have you changed your ideals?
Fair enough. I've been with the party for a long time. So 10 or 15 years ago, I was a libertarian. In 1996, I was a Democrat, believe it or not, who was disenchanted with his candidate and with all the other candidates that he thought was running. So back then, you remember, it was Clinton, who had a whole term to prove himself and didn't, in my opinion. You had Bob Dole, who didn't represent my values, and then you had Ross Perot, who was, for those of you who remember Ross Perot, he was a little crazy. And I just couldn't in good conscience vote for the man. So I did some research into third-party candidates, and I came across Harry Brown. I was sitting at work one night, late at night. It was about 6. It wasn't that late. And I said, you know what? I'm going to look for the Libertarian Party, and I'm going to give them a call, get on their mailing list, get some material. So I called the Libertarian Party of New York. I was living here at the time, and much to my surprise, they answered the phone. So I had a good hour-long conversation with the vice chair of the Libertarian Party at the time. Her name was Dottie Lou Brokaw. She has since passed. And we talked about Harry Brown's platform, which was very much tear down the state, abolish 90% of the departments that are established at the federal level. And coming from the Democrats, which was definitely not looking to tear anything down, but we were looking to grow government, which I didn't agree with. It was a little scary. So me having that conversation helped allay some of my fears. I will say that I am at a point now where I may be more of an anarchist than Harry Brown was. I may think that Harry Brown was actually being a little bit gentle back then, but it was a personality for me that brought me in, but it was the ideals and the principles that kept me here. And I've stayed here through a number of candidates and a number of campaigns, and I've worked on a number of those campaigns, including Johnson 2016 and a couple of others. Watching the party not only at the national level, but also at the state and local levels grow and actually see candidates make some traction and getting some elected here in New York has helped. I'd say 15 years ago, when we were looking at, let's see, 15 years ago, that would be 2009, no, 2007. So we're looking back at the Badnarik candidacy and ahead to the Bob Barr candidacy. I'd say I have a lot more hope for our party than I did back then. In 2004, in my opinion, not that Badnarik was necessarily a bad guy, he just wasn't a great candidate, but that was where it looked kind of bleakest for me. And now I see a lot of hope. I see us winning elections, not just in New York, but right next door to us in Pennsylvania, where they won 150 of them last year. Fantastic. I'm starting to see the Libertarian brand, the Libertarian Party, become more of a winning proposition. I've helped it get there somewhat in New York, and I want to see us grow that nationwide.
All right, that's cool. Who else liberty-minded did you, or liberty-minded or LP members that you sit there and say was a big influence to you? Example for me, Ron Paul truly brought me to this party. This group connected. I hooked in because of this group, thankfully. But Ron Paul was the first one that made me go, oh, wow, because I was Navy. I'm looking around. Foreign policy stinks. And he was the only one speaking where I went, okay, I'm with that guy.
I got to be honest. I spent a number of years, and I've come around a little bit. I spent a number of years not being the biggest fan of Ron Paul, because I came into the party at a time when he was fighting against us. He was, at the time when I came in, he was running as a Republican for Congress in Texas, and did that for several years. And I'm glad to see him that he's come back and actually embraced his libertarian ideals, especially his foreign policy, which is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's, a lot of people look at his economic policies and say, oh, Ron Paul, look, he's the guy who wants to end the Fed, which we should, but fail to see his foreign policy, which I think is really much stronger policy of his. So I've come around on him, especially on foreign policy. I have been lucky enough to sit in this state and get to know a couple of the people who are, your traditional libertarian heroes, like Larry Sharp. Larry Sharp's a friend of mine, and to say that this guy who's running for governor and is somebody that everybody knows and everybody flocks to at every libertarian convention and every meeting is a friend of mine is something that is really unique about our party. So he's what I look up to. I tend to really admire a lot of those behind the scenes people that you never hear about. A lot of those people who are doing data analytics, who are doing the database stuff, who are really building the infrastructure for our party. I'm probably one of the few people who will say that I'm a fan of Andy Burns for what he's done, the Ken Molmans of our party, and the amount that he is pushing CRM and that technology. Those are the types of people that I really admire and look up to. I am, by trade, I'm an IT guy. So to see somebody want to build infrastructure and really use that as a tool for our party is someone I admire as well. From a messaging standpoint, I'm a fan of what Spike Cohen has done especially over the last year, especially some of his fun social media things where he's ratioing posts by law enforcement and by local news outlets, and bringing attention to little issues like that. We're going to grow on the local and state level. The faster we do that, the faster we'll grow on the national level. The more we can get local people seeing libertarians in their communities talking rationally about our principles and our ideals, the more we see libertarian candidates seen as the adults in the room that we are, the more we're going to make traction on the national level. And those are the types of people I really admire.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Charles, do you have a question? Good.
What year did you say you came into the party?
1996.
See, what, and maybe we've talked about it, is there any structural changes that you would like to see done to the LPD or LP National that they're not doing right now? I'll tell you, they do a really good job getting messaging out, like when it's time for my memberships to come due. So that's a good thing. I think a lot of times people forget to pay their members. They would pay, but they don't get a letter. So that's good. But then I never see anything from them, which I truly feel we dropped the ball on the COVID lockdowns. And once things started to go, like we're getting a better narrative, I don't know if we really had a good messaging. Is there something structural that we can change so we can get out there?
So the main problem I've seen isn't necessarily structure, although there are a few operational things I've changed. I'll get to that in a minute, but more the number of people and the speed of decision-making that's being made. Once good COVID-19 messaging got out there, it kept getting out there and it was good, but it took a long time to get that out there. And it took, I will say that their messaging on the vaccine passports that you saw was probably some of the best messaging that they ever put out there, and they got that out in a timely manner. I wrote it, but because I was writing it for New York, and I wrote it for New York, I put it out for New York, and the national contacted me and say, hey, let's grab that messaging. Can we use that nationally? Can we tweak it a little bit? Like, I'm happy to tweak it for you. That's what happened. And that type of messaging, that type of decision making was lacking, and we're starting to see that now. And I agree with you. I think we didn't see that at the beginning of the mandates, when it was still 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We didn't see that decision making. It took a year to get there. It took a change in leadership to get there. I would like to see us change more operationally. There are some things I've seen where we're at risk from an information sharing standpoint, from an information retention standpoint. There's no HR, there's no disaster recovery. I'm looking at this from an IT guy standpoint. You see, there's these risk management things that are really preventing us from growing as a party, are things that we are lacking, and these need to be added. And we need to empower our committees a bit more. I serve on the LNC's IS committee, and it takes months to get decisions made and money spent and budgeted and allocated, and we need to figure out how to streamline that process. I don't necessarily have the answer to that. I would really love to talk to some people with more financial background than I have to see what that would be. I'd love to talk with our incoming treasurer, and if that's Tim Hagan or if that's Todd Agopian, I don't know who that's going to be. I'd love to see how we can streamline that process from a fiscal standpoint, but from a decision-making standpoint, we really need to empower our people and empower our committees to make these decisions and act on them.
Right. Okay. Does anyone came up with another question? All right. So what's the best way for people who's not going to the convention, but they like your message? What's the best way we can help you?
Well, You can help me by going to my website, which is tony4chair.com. That's Tony, the number 4chair.com. Click the little donate button and send me some money to help me get to as many conventions as possible. I'm working in that cloning technology to get to every one of them in those weekends when there are 5 of them. For some reason, there are some popular weekends that everybody wants to have their convention at the same time. And this one was one of them. So that is one way. Another way is to tell your friends who are delegates, not only for Virginia, but for other states, about me, and send them over to my website, learn more about my message. If you can't help me with financially, that's fine. Help me by getting my message out. Help me whip the votes and find the delegates.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, anyone have a question or anything? Just one final
Have
time.
you ever been a candidate?
I've been a candidate twice. I ran for U.S. Congress in 2016 against Louise Slaughter, who was one of those institutions of the party. I didn't do well, but I at least got the attention of some media and some Republican voters. In 2018, I ran for town justice in my town. I'm not a lawyer, but in New York, you don't have to be a justice. In fact, our town justice here is a social studies teacher. And I did relatively well in that race. So I've run both the big campaign, the congressional campaign, and the small campaign, which was right at the town level. In my little town of 6,000 people. I've also worked on several campaigns, a couple of congressional campaigns, plus of course Larry Sharp for New York governor, and then the Jorgensen and Johnson 16 campaigns.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, well, I guess that's all the questions. So thank you so much for coming and speaking and telling us about yourself. We appreciate it. Good luck in Reno, and we just hope that whoever becomes the chair, they we've got the right message. We just need, all we need to do is move a couple little, like the pipes, and then everything's going to flow properly. But right now we've got one pipe turned sideways and it's flooding the street. You know what I'm saying? So once again, thank you so much. And we will talk to you later.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out, again, tony4chair.com, just Tony number 4chair.com. I have a contact form and all sorts of ways to contact me. So
thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, so once again, thank you to Tony for coming and speaking to our group. Once again, you can go to tony4chair.com and you can find out more about his platform. All right, so while I got you here, I just want to let you know that the Roanoke Valley Libertarians we meet on the second Wednesday of each month, and we've got several more guest speakers who will be coming in either through Zoom or in person. So if you're in the Roanoke, Virginia area and you want to join us, we're on the second Wednesday of each month at Corned Beef and Company. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay free.